Good morning, or good evening, everyone. The time is now 6:03 p.m. and I'll call this call to order this Clark County Agricultural Advisory Commission. It is October 29th, 20.
We lost audio online.
Yeah. Can you hear this mic?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's give him a different mic.
It could just be, do I need to speak louder?
Or just real, some mic.
Okay. You want me to start over? Okay. For those of you joining remotely, your computer should be able to see the agenda on the screen. It's integrated in there, joining by phone only. We're announcing the agenda items as we move through. Members of the public and the applicants that have continued remotely are attendees. Other participants on here, no audio unless you are acknowledged by the commission chair or staff. Each agenda is planned as follows. Roll call, approval of agenda, approval of the September 24th meeting notes, general public comments. I'll switch here. Yeah. Commission business, agricultural lands study, section, items for the good of the order and okay, we start with roll call, commission members who are present for the meeting. Commission members, please say here. Your name is Paul.
Oh, there we go. All right, we're on now. Zora Oppenheimer.
Here, I'm sorry, I'm remote. I've got a sick kiddo.
All right, Zora is here. Amy Treasure. All right, Ruud Vandersong.
Present.
Holly Hanson.
Here.
Diane Dempster.
Here.
Okay, Diane
Here.
is
I'm
remote.
here.
Mo McKenna. Hello, Mo.
Here.
Dylan Haggerty. I don't think. Okay. Justin Berger.
Present.
Kevin Dobbins.
Here.
Myself, I'm here. Matthew Cornwell.
Here.
Okay. Isaiah Irish. And Tyler Berenson.
Present.
All right. It looks like we do have a quorum and okay. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Okay. Okay, we'll take Mo's motion. Ruud, do you want a second?
Second.
Okay. The motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Meeting notes. Take a motion for the approval of the September 24th meeting notes. Make sure you say your name when you make the motion and for the second, so the staff can record the meeting notes. Can we have a motion for the meeting notes? Go ahead, Ruud.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Matthew Cornwell, motion to second.
Okay. By the way, that was Ruud Vandersong that made the motion to approve the meeting notes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Oh, was that a person who was opposing or a late approval?
Approval, sorry.
Okay, that's what I thought it might have been. Okay, motion carries. Moving on. Public comment. I will now take public comment on any items outside of public hearing items. We will begin with the attendees in the room. Please approach the microphone if you would, and if you'd like to make a comment.
Hi, everyone.
Okay.
Am I on
Yeah.
now? Hi, I'm Judy Waite, and it's great to see everyone in person, having the courage. So, American Farmland Trust coined the phrase, no food, no farms. So if we don't have farmland, we don't have food. It matters a lot. And I would recommend that we look at all these maps and scrutinize the size capability, because there's a little bit of a myth that you have to have a certain amount of size to be a farm. And as that affects capability, and I think we need to consider existing farms. Sometimes that's indicated by zoning, sometimes by current use, and sometimes by farmers and growers in the urban growth area and outside toiling, to put it into one word. And a lot of it's out of love. So there are a lot of farmers that aren't here, aren't represented here, and we need to consider how we can support them and the land they're on and the infrastructure around the food and agricultural system. I think there's a lot of public land that is growing food, not just at Heritage Farm, but 10 acres of that is under the food bank. What if we had 100 somewhere? So I would say we need to maximize where and what we grow. And as we all know, food security is an issue that affects everybody. So let's put that as a high priority. Thank you for the echo chamber.
Echo chamber provided free of cost. Were there any other people here that wanted to make a public comment? Okay.
Seeing none in the room, yeah, I can read the online instructions.
Go ahead.
If you are using a computer or a WebEx application on a tablet or smartphone, if you would like to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand. There are instructions on to how to do this on the screen. Typically, the hand icon is located towards the bottom of your screen, but you may need to click on the icon that looks like a circle with 3 dots in order to see the raise hand option. For anyone on a telephone, the audio only option, please dial *3 on your phone's number panel to raise your hand. Staff will be able to see hands once they're raised and will request to unmute you one at a time. Please note that public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person in order to accommodate all speakers. And I am looking at the online attendees, and I am not seeing any raised hands, Chair.
All right, moving on. Next, we'll move on to commission business portion of the meeting. Number 1, the next 2 meetings of the Agricultural Commission were scheduled for the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and for Christmas Eve. I don't know what the problem is there. Anyhow, instead of holding meetings on those dates, we'll be having a meeting November 19th and December 17th. So it looks like those are going to be moved up 1 week. Is that correct? Okay, yeah. All right. County staff will send reminders, update the calendar, invitations, etc. very soon. Number 2, we have already heard from you that issues around code enforcement are important for the commission to address. We will be providing status updates on that topic each month, and there will likely be a future presentation from county code enforcement to help us have a conversation about the issues that need resolution. Right now, we're looking at a potential presentation from code enforcement staff in December to help provide clarity on code issues related to agriculture. Do you mind if I ask any questions?
Are they asking for input or are they stating their business?
Yes. No. It appears that at least the way it's addressed here is that we'll probably have a presentation from them. And I can only imagine that at that presentation, they may ask, there may be a question and answer period. Yes, no, maybe?
Yeah, I think there were requests from this commission for them to come to speak on, to help clarify about county code requirements. So I'm sure there'll be a presentation and opportunities for questions.
Okay. Lauren, since you're addressing that, would it be within the power or purview of this commission to address suggesting potential changes to code at that time? Or is that I suppose, we could talk theoretically about most anything, but would that be inappropriate at that time to, throw theoretical balls around the court, if you will?
Chair,
Yes.
if I may, since I had the more direct contact with Fire Marshal and Code Enforcement Director, my suggestion would be that we will, as staff, ask for suggestions of discussion topics that are most interested in next month after we get past the current topic that we're working on.
Okay.
And then that would guide the initial presentation. And then after that presentation, maybe in early next year, that would be a point where the core issues could be identified. And if there are things as like code updates that could be discussed. But I think that would be a little premature for the first discussion.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good.
We'll approach it that way. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right. Moving on. We'll now move on to the Ag Resource Land Study presentation. I'll turn it over to Oliver and Jose and the consulting team. Okay. By the way, it says here after presentation is concluded. No, never mind. I was jumping ahead. Take it away, gentlemen.
So sorry, I had my hand up. Can I just ask a quick question?
Yep. Yes, go ahead, Ms. Oppenheimer.
Thank you. The presentation from the county code enforcement, you were saying that was going to be in December at the December meeting. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
This is Oliver Ojak, if I may, Chair. This project is one that the council hired Eco Northwest and Triangle and Associates to conduct on behalf of Clark County. We have held 2 open houses, one on September 30th and last night. The package here with a blue cover is what was presented at the workshop last night. It's just for your FYI. I will say that Eco Northwest and Triangle Associate have been really working hard, given the time frame to get us to where we are. They're still on time to submit the report to the county on November 4th. And we have scheduled a work session where Eco Northwest will be presenting at that work session, sharing with Clark County Council their findings based on the analysis that they have done. Eco Northwest is the one doing the technical analysis, and Triangle Associate at the firm engaged in facilitation and public engagement. They will be summarizing all the comments we received and through the open houses and the interview that they have consulted. So without taking much time, let me turn this over to our consultant, Barrett, and he will be going over the presentation, their preliminary findings, and then there may be questions from the commission. We are here to support them. Jose Alvarez is our project manager on this particular issue. So with that, Barrett, take it away.
Thank you, Oliver. I'm Barrett Lewis. You have seen me before a couple times. I'm project manager, technical lead on this. Motioning. What?
You have to talk closer.
Oh, I have to talk closer. I'm a very loud person, so I'm not used to mics. And I'm supported by Becky Hewitt, project director from Eco Northwest. Okay. So on the agenda today, we're going to talk about where we are in this project timeline. We're going to do a review of the feedback that we have received from you and how we have incorporated it. We are going to present mapped lands with agricultural capability and major commercial significance indicators. And we will have a discussion of key findings. And so we ask you to please hold your comments and questions until that time. Okay, so as I said, the purpose of this is to present key findings from our draft report and gather your feedback to share with the county council as they develop their comprehensive plan update. Here we are in the project timeline status. So we've developed our methodology. We have engaged and currently engaging you. And now we have conducted the analysis and we've identified some key findings. And next we will be sharing our findings to support the county council decision-making process for the 2025 comprehensive plan update. I'm not going to go, like the last two times I went over all the regulations and the rules. I'm not going to do that again, but this is the primary WAC criteria, the three criteria that agricultural land studies, the framework that they are run by. We are looking today at the criteria for used or capable of being used for agricultural production and then has long-term commercial significance. So what's new? We have an analysis combining multiple indicators, and we have mapped and we will have discussion of the 11 criteria. As a refresher, this is our study area. So these are all of the rural plan designations in the study area. This excludes the Cowlitz tribal lands. So the study area is made up of all of these plan designations. And as I've said a few times, that this is, the starting point for our analysis. So to recap what we've heard in these meetings so far, we've heard concerns about the state of agricultural community, high turnover among farmers, lack of local government commitment, difficulty farming due to complex rules, as well as a domino effect where a pattern where one development seeds another area, which is then used to justify converting adjacent agricultural parcels. So this leads to a history of encroachment and parcelization.
Does this smell like feathers to you? They're usually pine. That smells like powder. Yeah.
Is there a question?
I feel like it smells like what I would imagine pillow
Like-
feathers. Julia, feathers are smell powdery. Have you seen popcorn?
That's so true.
Okay, I think we're
If you're not the speaker, would you please mute yourself? We don't need to hear your side conversation. Thank you.
okay. So what we heard in terms of agricultural capability, in terms of identifying what is capable of agriculture, a big topic that we heard was irrigation. So we heard that was important to identifying agriculturally viable land, but we heard mixed feelings about that dry land, cropland can be used without irrigation, and that some water rights owners sit on their water rights, and also the difficulty in obtaining rights as farmers. We heard skepticism regarding certain data sets we showed. They were the USDA Soil Capability Classification, the USDA Cropscape Layer, and the American Farmland Trust. We had a positive reception of the WSDA Crop Use Layer. In terms of the WAC identifiers, the criteria for determining long-term commercial significance, we heard a few emphasized: soil quality, parcel size, irrigation access, and infrastructure. We heard a few that were de-emphasized pretty broadly: alternative land use values and criteria that measure encroaching development as a negative indicator of commercial significance. And one thing that I heard was if you chip away at land because of nearby development, you will wind up with no land. So that was something and we also heard about the current use tax program, the Farm and Agricultural Current Use Program. We've heard that it has a gross income threshold that provides for a low barrier of entry. It allows non-farmers to get a tax break, and there is weak enforcement of non-farmers. We also heard a lot about food security, and we heard that local farms fill these access points. They're cited as a critical role in addressing food deserts, which are a common element when discussing food security. They provide direct to consumer sales for communities far from grocery stores, as well as the farming and food bank ecosystem. So there's this, economic loop where farmers sell to food banks, and now they're threatened by federal funding cuts, which impacts producers and food insecure residents. And we heard about crop diversity equals resilience. So support was voiced for all types of types and scales of farming, viewing a mix of operational sizes as a buffer against future food system shocks. Okay, so we're going to go back and look at the agricultural land capability WAC criteria, which states that land that is capable of being used for agricultural production, counties and cities, shall use the Land Capability Classification System of the United States Department of Agricultural and Natural Resources Service. So here's the data we showed you in the last meeting. We went through all of these. We heard your opinions. We processed them. We did, we mapped them. We saw how they lined up. We did not pursue the PBR index. We did not pursue the cropland data layer. We are using 2 data layers for our agricultural, the identification of agricultural capable land. We are using the 8 class USDA land capability classification that is mentioned in the WAC code. And we are also using the WSDA cropland layer that had pretty broad support in terms of its representation, generally speaking, in the second committee. So we acknowledge that the land capability classification has been viewed skeptically, has not been as widely accepted, I would say, as prime farmland, farmlands of statewide importance. So why are we using this? Primarily because it ensures consistency with the primary WAC criteria. It also allows us to use prime and statewide farmland as indicators of long-term commercial significance because they are listed as the first one. And in doing and using this, we are going to combine this with the additional data to address the limitations that you all have noted and that we've heard in open houses. So to supplement, to shore up some of those gaps that we were notified about, we are using the WSDA agricultural land use layer. So again, we heard pretty broad, a good reception to this layer. We are using it to fill the gaps where the LCC underrepresents farmland. And, you know, it incorporates ground truthing through field verification and survey data, which is why it is a more accurate data set than the national cropland data layer, which is satellites and remote sensing, essentially. So here's the comparison of the agricultural capability layers. So on the slides presentation, it's probably going to be kind of hard to see, but there are the agricultural designations on the map. On the left, they're in red for contrast. And on the right, they are in black. They have a shaded area. So on the left, we are primarily trying to show you and highlight the areas that we consider highly suitable and that are considered highly suitable by the USDA. And then on the right, we're showing you where the WSDA shows current crop growth. And you can see that there are some holes that this fills. Two primarily that I heard were this, do you see my cursor right there? Guess not. Was this area in the southwest along the river. We heard that that is being grown. So we overlaid the WSDA layer with it, and that did represent the growth. Same with this southern little area here that we heard that there was active growth on it, and we confirmed that there was with the WSDA data. So this, I'm sure you have seen this. We sent a map out recently digitally, and they're on the posters right here. This is our final agricultural land base, as we're calling it. This establishes the area on which the commercial significance criteria are applied. So this is the land being evaluated. And this combines the LCC higher suitability areas with the WSDA crop coverage. And the land base was determined by parcels with at least 50% coverage from the LCC highly suitable group, or the 50% coverage by the WSDA agricultural data. So if it satisfies one of those, it is included into the land base. And we utilize this to apply it consistently across all parcels within the study area consistently with WAC code 365, 190, 040, 10C. Oh, I did. Yeah. So you have a larger version of fold out in the open house packet. Okay, so as far as the agricultural production capability, there are a few key takeaways. There are many acres with soils identified as highly suitable for farming are not in active crop production. Currently the active agricultural landscape is primarily defined by hay and pasture, not intensive row crops. And the most intensive, high-valued specialty crops are concentrated within the county's best available Class 1 and 2 soils. We're going to move on to those long-term commercial significance indicators. Out of these 11, we are prioritizing soils, tax status, and predominant parcel sizes. First is soils. So this is where prime farmland and farmland of statewide importance comes in, which is a high priority factor in agricultural land studies across the board. So what this measures is the ease of agricultural production in optimal conditions based on soil characteristics. So if your farm is, has maximum best practices, soil erosion mitigation, then you have good soil, then you might be primary farmland. So why is it an important indicator of commercial significance? The prime farmland or farmlands of statewide importance, which is also very good soils, it ranks a little bit below prime farmland. These indicate a higher profitability in terms of health because of the yield versus cost ratio. You have crop choice flexibility, which supports long-term commercial viability. And you have lower risk, higher resilience. And the key takeaway that we found is that high quality soil is widespread. It's found in 98% of the land base and 90% of the agricultural designation. So Clark County in general has very good soils within the rural resources areas. We use tax status next. We understand that there are some reservations that the income threshold is low, making it potentially a less reliable indicator. But we're using it because as a tax incentive for land in an agricultural use based on farm income, it is a good indicator of currently farmed land. So why is it an important indicator of commercially significance? Because of that fact. Yes. And in this map on here on the left, it does need some, I think, guiding through the colors. So on the left, you have the light blue. These are current tax lots that are inside of the land base or an agricultural designation. So you'll note that these blue parcels are all in the darker shaded areas, as they are all in the agricultural designation. Orange parcels are inside the land base, but they are outside of an agricultural designation. And yes, this is another map in your fold out. And then the third one are the pinkish, purplish parcels. These are outside of the agricultural land base and inside the ag designation. And then your final one is your green, which is outside of both of them, which, as you can see, there's not a whole lot of those. And the key takeaway with this criteria is a stronger association between land designations and current use program enrollment at 55% in the agricultural designation than in the land base at 25%, which points to a possible indication of greater stability for farm investment. We have predominant parcel size. This is a very talked about one. Why is it an important indicator? Identifies conformance with minimum lot size requirements of agricultural land designations. Caveat that there are fragmentation, there are small parcels that are small because they predate current land designations. And it is also significant because larger parcels are generally better suited for some agricultural uses. And a caveat that we do not account for consolidated ownership of contiguous parcels. And a couple key takeaways here is the agricultural land base is dominated by smaller parcels. parcels, 75% of the parcels, or of the 75% of the area of the land base is made up of parcels that are 20 acres or less in size, which is the minimum lot size for agricultural designation. But even within the agricultural designation, 43% of the area of those parcels are within or below 20 acres. So this is a giant table that I fully expect to go back to, and I know you have it printed out. But I will sort of walk through this real quick. The column on the right is the number the share of acres of the area that is its subheader. So, for instance, the first soil row, the parcels with over 50% prime or statewide importance, it's 98% of the agricultural land base total acreage. One thing to note is that this looks at both areas separately. So by separately, I mean it will look at the entire area. If it's the land base, it looks at the area that is in the land designation as well as what is outside the land designation, and vice versa for land designations. So when we compare the designations to the land base, we find high quality soils are prevalent in both. We do find a lower prevalence of current use program enrollment on parcels within identified total agricultural land base than within agricultural designations. And there are higher prevalence of small parcels under 20 acres within identified total agricultural land base than within designations. So I zipped through that pretty fast. Couple, questions to consider. Does combining that NRCS and WSDA data address concerns about relying on the NRCS? Are the selected indicators of commercial significance appropriate? Should any other indicators be emphasized? Have earlier concerns about relevance to other indicators been addressed? And any questions or comments about the analysis and how the findings will be presented?
Was access to water on any of these indicators of long-term commercial significance?
No, it was not, due to the fact that we heard mixed things about water as a criteria for either determining what is agriculturally capable as well as the commercial significance of one.
Is there any way to challenge that? Have you ever tried to grow a plant without water?
Yes.
I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but for instance, a bunch of land you have labeled as silage, or hey, you're getting a ton per acre without water. You're getting 8 tons per acre with water. A chunk of crummy hillside that happens to have the right zip code is junk. But the piece next to it that's flat and has water is priceless. I know there's no maps for the water right that are accurate, but without that, this information's not really, doesn't mean anything. I appreciate you guys putting it together, but I don't know how else to say it than that. I don't mean to be rude, but you can grow dryland wheat, but that's on ground that's $1,000 an acre to buy. We're at about $250,000. Anyway, that's all I got.
I just wanted to clarify though, to confirm that that's not one of the WAC criterias. So that's primarily why it wasn't used. I take your point that you could be much more effective if you have water and be more commercially viable, but this is looking at sort of setting the minimum threshold, I guess is the way I would look at it.
So these guidelines are off a list from this WAC code.
Correct.
Gotcha. So you're able to choose from these indicators that are stated on the WAC code.
I'm sorry, say that again. That choose.
You're able to choose which indicators you use based on the indicators that are listed in this WAC code.
I think we looked at all of them. I think we just prioritizing the ones that were highlighted.
Gotcha.
That's sort of the minimum. I think we can expand, but that's what the guidance from the state is. This is what I've been identified for us to look at to make that determination.
And again, I don't mean to be rude, but is the information we're asking for the state, or is it for the county to be better informed?
I think it's for, so in going through this analysis, we have to follow the state guidelines. We can come up with that information on the water, but I don't think, like Bear was saying, it goes both ways. And so you're going to have a two-tier system. You have there's dry land farming that's happening, that can happen. If you have water rights, then yes, you can do much more efficient farming. And so we're again trying to set the baseline of what could be commercially significant, and sort of setting that as sort of the baseline. Going beyond that is now what this is. We're trying to identify all the lands that could be commercially significant, whether that includes water rights or not.
But if we exclude a piece that has water rights, you can't get them back at any price. They're gone forever.
So is what you're saying that we're within this, we've excluded some land that has water rights, or?
I mean, just by statistics and they're sure there is, but
so if there's lands that are determined that not be commercially significant, even though they have water rights, then that's a huge loss, a much bigger loss than if they didn't have them. Okay,
yes,
gotcha. Understood.
Yeah, and I guess in this mapping, is there a way to identify that? Because that is, I mean, irreplaceable. It doesn't matter how big your checkbook is, you're not getting it back. Or even holding on to it for that. But I guess, what do we have for tools to identify that? Can that be added?
We can ask, because I think Department of Ecology has that information. We can ask. The only thing I am aware is that it will not show you what future areas that could potentially have that water right, because that determination is made by Department of Ecology. So the information that you will get will be those areas that has existing water rights. That's the information that you will get. It wouldn't tell you, and we can ask if there are applications pending, but those are the type of information you will only get. But I don't know what of use that will be.
A piece of ground has water rights or doesn't. There's been multiple generations of people die trying to get water rights, where granddad started, dad tried, and they were declined with grandchild. I think if you excluded what it's in the application process, you'd be pretty safe.
I don't disagree with you, and this is an area where I believe some legislative lobbying and changes may be the more appropriate way to go. But
what I'm talking about is you're talking about designating and protecting areas, and without them on this map, they're not designated and protected. We're not trying to add water rights. We're trying to hold on to what's there.
I might add really quick with just a quick little search on my phone, Department of Ecology does have a map with several tools and overlays showing existing water rights, which I really would like to see overlaid on the prime and state priority use farmlands on here to identify it, because as Kevin said, once it's gone, it's gone. So
Yeah, just a heads up. By the way, I'm sorry, this is Chair Joe Zimmerman. I have used that many times. I am somewhat of a subject expert on using their interactive map. Hint, hint.
I'm going to go to the first question. Does combining NRCS and WSDA data address concerns about relying on the NRCS data? Thank you for your work and effort to bring those in. My understanding is that Clark County has close to 1,300 farms. This body represents 8 producers. The open houses, I went to one and I think it maybe had 70 or 80 people, could have been a little more than that. I don't know how many were at last night. So my question is really, if someone didn't raise their hand and say, hey, that's actually a good piece of farmland, I'm growing tulips on it. I disked that this morning. Was there any validation that happened that you went and looked at that NRCS property to say what is actually happening with that land, or talk to the farmers that, you know, those 1,300 farms here in Clark County to understand if that NRCS map had their farm listed as not suitable for farming, where then you brought in that that WSDA information instead? Or was it only when someone in this very small group raised their hand?
I think that we were always planning on including crop coverage. Excuse me. And that's why we brought to you the 2 crop layers. And, you know, there was not unanimous, but there was broad agreement that WSDA layer was the way to go. So we were always leaning that way.
But the areas that are currently considered not suitable, or the suitability is lower, has there been any effort to understand existing farming patterns beyond this group and 2 open houses?
Or I'm sorry if I could follow up, Mo, if you would allow me to. Or my question would be, would the comments about the NRCS map, excuse me, let me back up. Did the comments about the NRCS map cause you to essentially ignore the NRCS map, or is its data incorporated in your final cropland finding? No?
Matthew Cornwell. I think what I'm hearing Mo say is, yes, the WSDA map was the better of the 2 if we have to choose, but it's still not guaranteed to be perfect in its representation of cropland. And so she's asking, was there any boots on the ground effort made to figure out the imperfections of this study, even though it's the better study, instead of just people showing up and saying that's my land and that's what I do?
I'd like to jump in here if I could, please. I understand the appeal of a, quote, boots on the ground, close quote, investigation. How many properties do you want our consultants to view? How do they get onto each property? How do they question the property owners concerning their legal rights? How does this happen in any kind of practical, countywide and fair basis. I understand also because, you know, I've actually talked to people at these open houses who say, well, you know, just look up my land and you'll see blah, 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 blah. How do we decide again which properties to go to? I'm not sure it works to do that. I'm not sure that's what the law means by a countywide analysis. I know if I went to court, because I've done it, and argued to the court, well, we know that that parcel is like this, so it shouldn't be designated for agriculture, I would lose because that's not a countywide analysis. And the maps that the consultants have constructed are really high level analysis. And that's why they've come to you now more than once, sometimes individually. I think most of you have been interviewed, and as a group, to say, what do you think about this? What are we leaving out? What else should we think about, or what should we eliminate? And it's not going to be perfect, but I would argue that it's a better result than having Barrett and company tramp around the county to the places that they are allowed to and can get to and can make some sense of when they get there.
I have an idea for you, Chris. I was pretty concerned that when the maps were shown in a group of 8 producers, 2 of the 8 said that land says it's not suitable for farming and I'm farming it. So my ask would be that there is a statistical study among producers in this county, right? So USDA says we have about 1,300 farms. I would want to get a statistical representation of those farms to look at these maps and help validate them.
Or, sorry, Joe Zimmerman again. The suggestion I would have, and by the way, this would be my question to the consultants, is essentially to either do not use the information from that NRCS map, or to to weight it very low. And just was, sorry, with that, would you tell us, was the data used? Was it ignored? Was it weighted in some way, shape, or form?
I'm going to give a less technical answer first. This is Becky Hewitt with Echo Northwest, and then I'm going to let Barrett give a more precise answer. So the less technical answer is, if the land showed up on either indicator on this map, so either the NRCS showed high quality soil or the crop land showed it was being farmed, either or, then it's in. So even if the NRCS is a complete miss on somebody's property, if the other layer catches it, it's in. Okay, Barrett, do you have any clarifications?
I think that was succinct.
Thank you. Sorry, could we go back to those list of questions on the, thank you. Okay. Huh? Yeah, sorry, earlier when Kevin Dobbins made his comment about irrigation water, I thought I'd just state for the say for the good of the commission here. I know that, okay, for those who don't know, our farm is a direct market farm. Direct market agritourism is what we do. However, back in the 1980s and through the 80s and 90s, we supported ourselves by being a grain farm. And I know that, back in from the mid 70s on through about the year 2000, we used to say that if we could, at the end of the year, divide our total gross revenue divided by acreage, and if we came up between $350 to $450, we were doing pretty okay. We usually were profitable and be able to feed the family that year. The reason why that our farm has such an issue with irrigation water rights and is continuing to fight is because after we made the switch to direct market farming, let's just say we would be ashamed if we only made $350 to $450 an acre. We are talking anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 an acre revenue per acre. In fact, let's go a step further. Instead of raising 750 acres of grain that only provided income for our family of 5 plus, let's say 2 or 3 additional paid employees, I filed 145 W4s or W2s last year. So we are not just raising an incredible number of dollars per acre, but then we are also returning it to the county in the form of pay and payroll. So there's an awful lot to consider when, this is just to say that, Kevin had a good point. This irrigation variable is something that I really feel needs to be taken into account. Maybe it doesn't belong in the ag land study, but it's an important variable, especially to the people in this room.
It sounded as though the concern was that we might lose land that has a water right on it. And I think there may be some that are arguing if it doesn't have a water right, it's not valuable as agricultural land. So I would hope that we don't exclude dry land farming just because it doesn't have a water right. And then another thing related to water is there's exempt wells that are all around the county. And I don't have I was going to look up the exact numbers, but for livestock with an exempt well, it's not a water right, but you have access to water. If you can have a viable well, it's an unlimited amount of water. And then there's, I think, a significant amount of water that could be used, especially if you're on smaller acreages. And as we're comparing numbers of what you can earn with irrigation or non-irrigation. We've been dryland farming for 65 years. And this year with the hazelnuts, we're looking at $2,000 an acre. And this is only our second year of a commercial harvest. So we could be up to, and depending on the global market, $4,000 an acre. But our land has been in grass seed, strawberries, raspberries, Bartlett pears, and now hazelnuts. So I would not want people to discount dryland farming. Otherwise, I'll be quiet.
Zora has her hand up online.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay? Okay. I have some notes and I'm really sorry I'm not there in person. The report, thank you all for the work, consultants, county employees, everybody, for the work that you've done on this. I can see that this is a tremendous amount of work and I completely understand the very compressed timeline. So I want to acknowledge that. This report is going to be posted on the website in 4 business days. So is anything in this conversation actually going to make a difference?
I would like to say I hope so.
But I will give a non-technical answer again and then let Barrett correct me. Because Barrett and I talked about this a little bit at the beginning. So what I understand of what we can do in the very few days that we have is make sure that caveats are noted about the commercial significance indicators. If there are any sort of data limitations that should be acknowledged, we can get those acknowledged. If there are clarifications about how things are visualized on the maps, we might be able to do some of those if it would help with understanding the data that's being presented. I don't think a lot of new analysis can happen. We might need to have a sidebar conversation some other time about whether we could pull in water if everyone agreed that that was an appropriate addition, about whether we can get that in and what we could do on that front. But I think we're talking about clarifications, adding caveats, acknowledgments of limitations that might be informative for somebody that doesn't know this data the way that y'all do. But not new analysis. Barrett, anything you want to add? And then I'll also let staff chime in.
My understanding is that we're recording notes about these meetings and the open house, and that those will be provided to the county council to consider along with the agricultural land study.
The final water thing I'll say is I feel like it doesn't feel as important for what's already proven to be 1 to 4 high suitability farmland. I think it's just looking into that 5 to 8 and making sure that the only decision isn't the quality of the soil, but there's that overlay of value of water. But I don't think the whole map needs to be irrigation call out, since there's already a sign that we would probably want to keep that land for ag use.
Yes, this is Oliver. I will agree with Becky that at this point, what we will be doing, or the consultant will be doing, is providing clarifications in a manner that helps the reader to understand the various data that this report is relied on. We've been hearing from folks that are commenting, as Barrett indicated. All those comments are going to be incorporated and presented to council as part of their review. I agree with you more. There's some folks who are telling us, yeah, my property says not suited for farming. I am farming it. It doesn't mean that the data is wrong. It's just what that data is communicating. And we have to be able to provide some clarity in terms of the interpretation of the data. And that's all we can do at this point. And if there are areas where we can provide caveat, I believe our consultant will be able to incorporate that in the final report.
So I guess just to kind of wrap that question up that I had about if any input that we have can be incorporated into the report. I said this last time. I know that the timeline was short. I'm sure that you guys got us this information as soon as humanly possible. I am not a dummy, and I do not understand the presentation that we just had. And it's not because you guys are not fabulous presenters. It's because this is such dense material that it takes time, and usually it takes people 3 times to really understand something like this. You read it, you hear the presentation, and then you go back and you review your notes. If I am the only one, then that's fine. I will own that, and I will try and figure it out. I'm guessing I'm not the only one. in the room who doesn't fully grasp this whole thing. And my concern is that with so little time to grasp it, that by not asking the questions, we are rubber stamping something, because we don't have the time to fully understand it. So I don't know the answer to that. I just want to put that out there. With such a compressed timeline, I'm concerned that suddenly we're 2 months in and it's like, well, the Ag Commission said that this was okay because they didn't ask questions about this, when maybe it's because we didn't fully understand all of it.
I think we share your concern. I think Oliver and I were discussing earlier today about, we don't expect you to rubber stamp this. The report is due out, like I said, next week. You guys meet on the 19th. If you want us to come back with 2 weeks with that report and the benefit of the discussion that we'll have it with council on the 12th, I think that would make a whole lot of sense for you to digest that and have that discussion at that meeting on the 19th to weigh in and make a recommendation to council.
Go ahead, Ruud.
It's Ruud Vandersloom. So we've got a lot of maps. We've seen them a bunch of times. I'm very glad that these changes have been made and that it looks the way it does now versus some of the maps we looked at last time. But so what I see stuff in the agricultural designations. Outside of it, we know a lot more about it. We know the lot sizes, etc. So what is this going to tell the county? What are we suggesting with this? I don't know what the changes are. I don't know what it currently is. Are we asking for less land to be designated, more to be designated? What does this lead to actually happening?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so given the my interpretation of reading the maps, it seems that the data seems to suggest that much of the land that's currently designated ag is correctly designated. It's supportable by the data. In addition, there's a lot of land that could also be designated as ag, is the big takeaway for me.
This is Joe Zimmerman again. I have a concern with the information on the maps, and then it's really summarized quite well. And well, actually, it's not summarized quite well. It's still confusing, but the key findings page or key findings slide, okay, talks about how many parcels, how many number of acres are in the agricultural land base versus agricultural designations. And then, of course, that refers back to, all of these wonderful maps. We have the dark lined sections, areas that, those are the agricultural designation areas. And I guess I realize this has nothing to do with the study. The question I have is, where in the heck did Clark County come up with those areas being the agricultural designations? I guess, and I apologize, I don't want to, I know this sounds, I don't want this to sidetrack the conversation. I realize we're kind of talking two different things here. We've got the ag studies, but I keep coming back to this thing of who in God's name chose those areas and said, nope, that's the ag land, because I guess I just I look all across the county, you know, from Battleground to Ridgefield, from, you know, from Brush Prairie to Hawkinson, from, you know, Battleground, you know, from Farger Lake over to La Center. And I'm going, my God, I mean, I don't see a reason why the whole dang thing shouldn't be at least, you know, be considered agricultural designations. I don't know. Do we have, if you don't mind, we've got Chair Marshall here. Do we know, sorry, not to put you on the spot, do we know who came up with these ag designations, when and where? Or I suppose Oliver and Jose really might know that. Do we know when and where those ag designations were created?
I think Oliver and Chris were probably there. Oh, Oliver.
Joe, that's a good question. I will answer it this way. For some of you that have been in Clark County for a long time, born here, the first time that the county did a county-wide or the first comprehensive plan of the county was done in 1979. And then the zoning that accompanied that 79 plan, the first rezoning of the entire county occurred in 1980. And that was the plan that had been in place until in 1994, when the county adopted the first comprehensive plan to comply with the Growth Management Act. Before that, as part of that process, the commissioners at the time appointed a task force known as the Farm Focus Group. We have the report that they did in 1994, and we can provide that to you at your later meeting. They were the one that used the same criteria that the state provided counties, because all counties were going through the first plan adoption, provided the county a guideline to follow, just like the WAC criteria we have now. That group used that criteria to designate what areas should be agriculture. And that's what we have following that 1994 action. So a decision on what areas qualified as ag following those criteria is what we have until now. And since then, there have been changes to WAC about how to look at agriculture or resource land. And that is, again, what this current consultant have done, using those WAC to come up with this current information that you have. You asked a question earlier, and Jose, I believe, answered it correctly. My takeaway from this is that it appears that they are really, or the consultant are really validating, if you will, those are validating, confirming those areas that were previously designated as agriculture, and also identifying more areas following the criteria that could also be designated as agriculture. That's my takeaway from this study. So that decision, I will also add, our legal counsel is here, that action in 94 was challenged by those that believed that it was all wrong. And the courts ruled that the action and the process that the task force went through in identifying areas that should be designated as agriculture was valid. So that's the small history that I can provide. I didn't work on rural issues, but I was here when that was done. And since then, if I may add, and Chris may correct me, every time we go through this process, there's always a challenge. And every time we touch those designated agricultural areas, we have lost. Yes. The only time some cities have been successful is that they annex those areas into their city limits before the courts can rule. Since then, the legislature have closed that loophole where the cities can no longer annex or vest areas that are designated as agriculture until we go, if the plan is appealed, until the appeal is exhausted before those areas, the outcome of those areas can be made. That's the little history that I can provide you. So these areas that you show it here that are in dark colored area or in dark line, those are the current agricultural designated areas going back to, I will even say, 1980s, confirmed in 1994, and now trying to do this study countywide to see whether this area, some of these areas still qualify as ag. One of the things that I will add is that the soil doesn't lie. It's either prime, it's not. You go through the criteria. That's why we are finding more areas that qualify as ag.
Yep.
There may be some areas that doesn't meet the criteria. If that's what this study says, that's part of the decision and the outcome that the council will have to wrestle with. Chris?
Yes, go ahead, Chris.
So I want to add a little extra detail. There was in 1994 a large chunk of land, mostly north of the Lewis River, that the council and the advisors to the council couldn't really decide whether it should be agricultural land or forest land. Figured it would be valid to say it was both because that land could be used for either of those resource industries. So they called it agroforest.
Okay.
35,000 acres. And unfortunately for the county at the time, whatever, you know, it was a new thing, this GMA comp plan. And the growth board and the courts did not agree that GMA allowed an agroforest designation. It had to be one or the other based on the criteria. And so the county then had to do something with that 35,000 acres. And most of it became R5, R10, or R20.
Really?
Gee, I don't know, was there a couple thousand acres that became agriculturally designated? No, I thought there were just a couple thousand left that.
There were 3,500 left.
Yeah.
However, that 3,500 did not go to ag or,
Okay.
yeah, no.
So that was land that was initially potentially thought of as having some agricultural capability that you will not see on our map now as ag land. And with respect to losing on every single de-designation of ag land, every time we've tried it, we've lost, but not for every piece of land. There was a fair amount of land north of the Vancouver UGA at the time that was brought into the urban growth boundary in 2004, reiterated in 2007. So that's one area where that de-designation was allowed. And there were a few more in 2007.
I know there was a big stretch up Northeast 10th. There was something about rural lands holdings and yeah.
So that was some of it. And then there were a few other places here and there Gee, I think we ended up losing on what was brought in to the Washougal UGA, the Camas UGA, except to the extent, and the Ridgefield UGA, except to the extent that it got annexed. If you look in the Ridgefield UGA, I can see it on the map over there from here.
Yep.
You'll see a little piece of land that says it's ag land. It is 100% surrounded by urban land.
Oh, yeah.
How did that happen? Well, I think the landowner at the time did not sign the annexation petition that other landowners' attorneys were circulating to the other landowners. Didn't get annexed by the city. And so the ruling from the Growth Management Hearings Board, well, it was ultimately a ruling by the state Supreme Court, didn't allow that land to stay in the urban growth boundary. So it's out there now, surrounded by urban and urbanizing land.
Chris, if I could ask a clarifying question there. You had mentioned that essentially Clark County has, you said, lost in court every time they wanted to de-designate ag land.
Yep.
Has Clark County ever considered designating more ag land? I mean, I guess that's what would be the process? What would that even look like to designate additional ag?
The criteria for designating equal the criteria for de-designating. It's the same set of questions, which is why our consultants aren't looking at stuff and saying, well, this should be removed, that should be removed. They're just looking at what it is, because it's the same set of questions. And no one in a comprehensive plan update that I've seen has ever asked for land that wasn't already designated for agriculture to be designated.
All right.
Well, are you the landowner?
Why, yes, I am. No, I'm just kidding. Chris, thank you for answering that question.
You're welcome.
Just to add that on your commission webpage on the resource lands, we do have the history. I suggest you read it. It's good information about what happened at the time with a group of 12 folks like yourselves coming together to try to figure out those questions. So you can blame them.
One final comment from me. We have an issue paper called Issue Paper 1. It chronologically tells the history of ag in Clark County. I can ask staff to provide that to this group as well. So both how the county have dealt with ag and also rural issues since the adoption of the 94 plan. And you will see all the court cases, the outcome of those. So those are two issued papers we can ask this group to take a look at going forward.
It's already there.
Great. I had a comment from my fellow commissioners. So I'm just looking at the timeline on the back, and these would be good dates to put in your calendar. That November 4th, the Ag Land Study is posted, and maybe pair it with some of that light reading that Jose and Oliver just directed us to, so that we understand how a commission has gone about this in the past. That November 12th work session, my understanding, and Chris will correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're not able to participate in that, but that the public can attend and watch it, right?
Sorry. Yeah, that's an open public meeting.
Great.
So anybody can watch. but the public does not get an opportunity to speak at the work session.
But then we come into our November 12th commission meeting a little less blind than we have been coming into these, where we actually have had an opportunity to read the report. We will have had an opportunity to see a presentation. And then that meeting on November 19th is this commission's opportunity to take a vote to communicate something to council as a body. So you can send in your comments to the county council whenever you want, but if we want to vote to communicate something as a body, it needs to happen on November 19th because the comments close on November 30th. So there's some homework and hopefully showing up, and hopefully we can make sure that we discuss and have a really good conversation on the 19th. Oliver.
Yes, Mo. The last day to submit comment, which is November 30th, that is not on the ARC study. That is on the draft environmental impact statement. When this report is issued on the 4th and the work session of the council where the consultant gives their presentation, the county council is not going to make any decision on the 12th. So you will have ample time, and other groups will have ample time to react to the study. So at your next meeting from the 4th till your next meeting, you will have opportunity to read the report and collectively or individually submit your comment or support or questions, whatever that may be. One of the things that I am working, I don't know whether if you have questions where we are not the authors, whether we can ask our consultant to come back and talk to you. They're going to ask me to pay for it, and I'm going to ask the council to pay for it. So, but there are options out there for you.
Kevin Dobbins, I got a question on your key findings. Of the acres listed in the parcels, was there any asterisk or anything taken into account where a 20-acre parcel has maybe 5 acres of a canyon, an acre tied up in a house and a shop, an acre in driveway, where 20 acres actually equates to 10 or 15, or is that total space?
That would be total space, because taking into account development would be what is called a buildable lands inventory, which is a separate thing.
Is there a way to look at 10 random parcels, come up with a percentage of what the average would be, multiply that 101,000 times over? Because, I mean, as it looks now, we have a 101,000 acre field out there ready to go. And, that's not the case. We got, 202 postage stamps. And I know you can't quantify that. That'd be impossible. But, something in the notes when it's presented to the board, that this is total area. I mean, just what's eaten up in road right-of-ways is a huge number. Of the 101,000 stated, I mean, I'd gamble there was 50,000 that you could actually plant something on. I think it's a true number, but it's falsely inflated.
I'm going to ask, sorry, I just want to ask Barrett to clarify. I think right of way, because this is for a parcel, right? So public right of way is excluded. Confirm? Okay. But I think what you're pointing to is to acknowledge that the acreage that is listed is the gross tax lot acreage, which may not all be equally suitable for farming and which may include structures and other things and a house in some cases. And so that the farmable acreage may be different than the acreage reflected. Is that what you're asking to acknowledge?
Correct. Just so we portray it correctly, like I said, as it looks now, there's a massive field somewhere ready to go, and that's not really the case. So.
I think the assessor's database would provide also the number of housing units and whether it's vacant or not. So that might be something to add.
I was just thinking to myself, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tyler. Yeah.
One thing I couldn't help but notice here is there's a great disparity between the parcels that are qualified as prime farmland and the parcels 25% enrolled in current ag use. With this, when the comp plan is to change, is there any way that the county could potentially put together a voluntary opt-in program for adjoining parcel owners, people who would like to voluntarily designate their land as ag tax status? I know it seems crazy because of the property values, but I think a lot of support would actually swing that way.
Mm-hmm.
Are you asking, let me be clear, if people can ask if their land or somehow themselves designate their land as being in current use? I'm not sure what your question is.
No, if it's currently just a parcel that's being farmed that's not designated ag at the moment, to increase our designated ag areas, can it voluntarily be opted into?
It would be to designate ag rather than de-designate it. And if it meets the same criteria, Chris, as you mentioned, even though it's probably rarely happens, seems theoretically it could happen. And I think there are property owners who are looking at either conservation easements or other kinds of things to protect their property. This would be one way to do that.
I mean, one question is what's going to be the outcome of this analysis, and what policy decisions will our council make based on that analysis? And you all can help with that. Not that your decision would be dispositive, but it would be great to know what your thoughts are. If the ag study shows X, does that mean that land should be designated that isn't? If it shows Y, does it mean that everything should stay as it is? If it shows Z, does it mean that a bunch of land should be de-designated, or the particular areas that are shown as that? So it will be really interesting to see what the outcome is here and see what the policymakers make of that.
Mm-hmm.
Just a couple thoughts on opportunities for your input to the council in this process. The draft environmental impact statement covers 3 options. In January, the council will select our preferred option, and that will undergo a environmental impact statement. So you can have input throughout that process, and ultimately, fingers crossed, I guess, our decision will be made and finalized in June. So throughout that entire process, you can have input, and I would encourage you to do that, and also to communicate with the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will look through all of the documents related to the comp plan update and provide recommendations to the council, so you can try to influence the Planning Commission as well.
Yeah,
Just a follow-up nudge is I do have a family friend who is looking to turn his land into ag, and even though it's just a couple acre pumpkin patch at the moment, it means something to him. And so I think that's an interesting question of how do we present a call to action / pipeline to move land in that direction if that's of interest, because he's just sitting there like, I want this, but I have no idea how to do that.
Right. I think that's not often been heard. It's often been heard, let's figure out how to maximize the value of our land. And there's other values that people have for their land.
But the same, again, the same requirements apply for designation as for de-designation. So based on the county-wide analysis, that analysis has to support the notion that land should be designated for agriculture. And you can't just look at a property that, you know, is a farm and is great for what it does and so forth and say, there we go, ag land. So as I say, it'll be very interesting to see what the outcome of this study is.
Okay. What, Rude, you had something?
Ruud Vandersalm. So ag land, designated ag land can't be de-designated. Good. Ag land that is not designated can't be designated, really. I mean, the hurdle there both ways is really high. I understand that, right? What I've seen change on this map supports keeping what's designated ag as ag. So that's what we've done here. What else are we discussing that we can help on?
This is Olive again. I think that this study will, as Jose indicated earlier, might take away two things. One, there is support for areas that are currently designated as agriculture. There are within that some areas that could, if the council make that decision, could be found to not meet the criteria to remain ag. Similarly, the findings is also pointing out some areas or additional areas that could be designated as agriculture following the criteria. It's up to the council to make a decision whether to support those areas being designated as agriculture. I think what I can say, and Chris is correct, if an area currently as part of this study shows that it's not supporting the resource designation, you know, the property owner may come in and suggest, I would like my property to be designated as ag. I don't know whether this study will support that. If it doesn't support it, that may be part of the input into the final outcome or decision that council will make. I am hesitant to say that we will, you know, kind of like cherry pick which property should be designated as agriculture. There are some areas, in my opinion, where you may have a property, let's say 20 acres or more than 20 acres, but the property owners have divided that property either for tax purposes or for other reasons. And in between the larger piece, you find some areas that no longer qualifies as ag. based on this study. I think the difficulty is going to be, what would you do? What would the council do? If within that big piece, in the middle is 5 acres, because of parcelization, that this study says no longer qualify as ag, would you designate that as rural 5 in the middle of that 100 acres? This is going to be a big challenge, in my opinion, for the council to sort out. And you may look at this and be able to make a recommendation as well. Oh, well, no, that whole piece should remain as ag, rather than taking a piece in the middle and say it shouldn't be ag. That's part of the observation that I see. So how to separate some of those conflicts is going to be a challenge, but because I see some of that here in terms of the findings. But take a look at it. Be prepared to make your recommendation, because you will find the same thing that I am pointing out.
I keep coming back, this is Mo. I keep coming back to slide 19, and I keep looking at it and just thinking about what a tremendous opportunity Clark County has, especially as we think about, the stats that keep coming out, like 1 in 4 children are in SNAP benefits and live in a home that is food insecure. I'm like, wow, we have such an opportunity to feed this community. We have such an opportunity to get farms, crops on those acres. And whatever happens with this ag study coming out of this, I just feel like as a commission, like we got to be focused on that. Like, let's get that land that is really suitable, class 1 through 4, how do we put food on that land?
This is Kevin Dobbins. I don't mean to sound like an idiot, but I'm going to ask a dumb question. According to what Chris said, you really can't undesignate ag, and you can't designate ag without a court battle, right? And then based on what you guys said over at consultants, or maybe it wasn't you, but the areas that are circled in black on your maps are the current ag overlay transferred onto this new map. So if that's the case, and it's impossible to change the zoning on ag ground, either for or against, are you guys talking that the county's gonna rezone as a whole thing? Like we're gonna move all the pieces, and then that is not disputable? Or, I mean, I'm really struggling based on what Chris said, why we're even doing this. If it's or nearly impossible to change the zoning on it, why are we having this whole conversation?
I'm curious about designating, once it's met the criteria.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Pierce County, I think Thurston County have gone through this process as well. And, maybe it's led to some litigation, but I believe, and Oliver or Jose, maybe or Chris, if they were able to bring to designate some land once it was found that it met the criteria. But, I guess I would feel I wouldn't want to give up on that.
So are you, and maybe Chris, this is a question for you. Is this new comp plan an opportunity to move the puzzle pieces around?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Will it be hard? Yup. Will we be challenged? If we're de-designating any land at all that's agricultural land, I would bet significant money that we'll get an appeal, because we always have. And usually they win. In the past, starting in 2007, cities were able to annex land that was removed from farmland and brought into their urban growth boundaries. They annexed it before the growth board could issue a decision, because that takes about 6 months. And then it was part of a city area. You know, that's the way it worked.
But I think the question is designating additional.
Well, I think he said changing either way. If we can't change either way, why are we here? So in my experience, nobody is asked here to designate land.
Oh, really?
Could it happen? Yup.
Okay.
Now, when I think about who would oppose that, that's an interesting question. I don't know that the council would do that without the approval of the landowner.
Right, right.
And if the landowner doesn't challenge that designation, I'm not quite sure who else would have a stake in it.
BIA?
So the BIA is going to tell somebody in the rural part of the county that they have no say over their property designation?
No, I'm saying that they would speak against the.
Yeah, they might speak against it, but
That's true.
I'm not sure that
Yeah.
they would have a stake in the matter sufficient to even support a challenge at the growth board.
I see.
So, and I don't know what happened because it hasn't happened here.
Chris, when you say you're challenged legally, taking it out of ag into something else,
Yeah.
who challenges you? Because as a landowner, you know, my 20-acre ag 20 is worth X amount of dollars. If it's zoned, you know, 100 houses per acre, like they're going, it's worth a lot more. But who actually comes after you?
Oh, that would be a local group called Friends of Clark County, their predecessors, and people involved in those groups, and then the statewide group, which is now called FutureWise. And when it was first formed, it was called 1,000 Friends of Washington. So those folks challenge those de-designations. And as I say, in general, they've won. Not in all cases, but in most.
Yeah, Holly Hansen. To me, this also involves the water rights and BIA, because I believe that would be one of their arguments for scooping up land. If someone says, well, this farmland doesn't have water rights, therefore we should just build on it.
So Ruud Vandershalm again, sorry. Basically, de-designating and designating land is not a zero-sum game. There's nobody to go to say, well, there's these bad parcels that don't have irrigation and are really hard to grow on because of, you know, it's on a hillside or whatnot. And then there's this other land next door that's nice and flat and could support an orchard and maybe even a more productive orchard with irrigation. But that doesn't work because every parcel is standalone, correct? With designating, de-designating. So there is no grand puzzle of swapping pieces to make this better. It's all individual per parcel thing. Just like Oliver said, if there's a little parcel somewhere in the middle of nowhere that isn't very good at ag, it's probably more likely to be de-designated ag because the owner might go along with it, but then another group in Washington or Friends of Clark County or whatever will step in and try and block it anyways. So pretty much it's really, really hard to move any of this, to designate more, to de-designate it, because it's not a zero-sum game. You can't trade and say, you know, we get 100 acres and you get 100 acres. Everybody's still happy, right?
it was intended to be hard. You can always make more money growing houses than you can make growing vegetables. Everybody here knows that.
Once.
So that actually is set forth in the statute and in the regulations that you have to protect, and the state law says that the county is supposed to, there's a whole bunch of verbs: protect, maintain, enhance, conserve, farmland, agricultural land, not allow the parcel that's next door to interfere with the ag operation. So you don't allow uses, you don't zone it to allow that, you don't designate it to allow that. Yeah, it's intended to be difficult.
So basically the map is status quo. Then what does this study recommend to the council as it stands now? What is this telling the council?
That's a good question. We will get the report on November 4th. They will provide some clarification, some caveats, and we'll see what the council decides to do. If the result comes back showing that the current area designated as agriculture qualifies to remain agriculture, there are some requests through this process that call for the designation. If the outcome of this result says, no, those areas should remain ag, I wouldn't be the one making the decision. It will be the council. I have publicly shared my concerns, and I don't know, for example, those that made those requests. I can say openly we were cautioning the council about undertaking this study, that there are risks involved. But part of my role and part of our role is to work in a manner that minimizes that risk to the county. However, this is the first time since '94 that the county is taking a broader look, or countywide, to look at resource designation in Clark County. Now, I will only add that the reason for the formation of this group is to continue the conversation on what and how to protect ag in Clark County. So this is just that when we commenced this study, your group was formed. And we have to come here to share with you the process and what the consultants are doing. This is not the end of the conversation. I think you will continue to look at other ways to provide advice to the council on what to do about preserving, conserving, and protecting ag. I will stop there. And you know, just like the Commission on Aging, you can ask the council to provide you funding to do whatever type of study that you want. I'm being honest. Yeah. And other research, since I've been here, they have been going back to '94, a provision to do a transfer of development right. Okay, TDR or PDR. And we have been chastised, even as far as to the court, that why haven't you adopted a TDR program, transfer of development right program? There's so many other tools to preserve agriculture. So this is just the beginning of your work. It wouldn't stop by this. This is just one component because we started doing this study and your group was formed prior to that. And we have to come to you because some of you have more knowledge. I thought about setting up a task force. Some argue that you don't need a task force to do this. Fine, but you have this group who can check in and make recommendations, but your work will not stop on this. It's more on going forward. How should the county, both on policy, both on zoning, both on other incentives to continue to encourage agricultural production in Clark County? I mentioned water rights, some of you talked about, that there may be some opportunity maybe through this group or what other. This is the first time Clark County is having an agricultural commission. If you look at other counties, Snohomish, Pierce, they have agricultural commission. We will learn from what other groups are doing and bring that to you. Some may require advocacy, maybe at the state, because some of these things that we are doing is as a result of change in state law or requirement that we have to follow. So don't take this as the final thing that you will be working on going forward.
Matthew Cornwell, Clark County Food Bank. You may not be able to answer this, but my curiosity would be, is the council going to their magnifying glass on what is already designated ag land and doing, or we have the right land in there, or are they going to be looking outside of the boundary and say, do we have enough ag land in the county? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. You should take a look, if you have not already, at the 3 alternative proposals studied in the draft environmental impact statement. And if you look at those proposals, that will give you a good look at what the county council is considering doing. Now, what exactly are they going to do? I have no idea. That's for them to decide. If they voted yet, they haven't told me. And I don't think they have.
I just add there's 5 of us and
yeah,
we could have 5 different opinions.
Sure. Sure. All right. Any other questions? Do you think we've beaten this horse to death? Okay. All right. Barrett, thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you for your time. Yeah. All right. Are we ready to move on? Okay. I know I'm ready to move on. Do we have any topics for the good of the order? Anyone? Going once? Going twice?
We had the poll. Are we going to discuss the results and action items off of that?
No.
Cool.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, other than, was the poll distributed to everyone, by the way?
Yeah, so all commission members received a link to a survey on SurveyMonkey. We had 8 of you respond so far, and I've sent those responses to the officers.
Okay.
This is just a little plug that if you did not take the survey, please take it. And then we just got it today or yesterday, so we'll look at it and then I think share openly with all the commission members so that you can see what everybody said. And then I think we bring that back for a discussion in December, January, start to talk about subcommittees and all that. A lot of that work, which I think would have been like the way that a normal commission started, is just delayed because of this ag study. So I think once we get past this, we'll get into that work of like, what are the topics that people care about? What are the subcommittees we want to form? We'll do all of that work in the new year.
And a question here for Lauren, or maybe even Chris. is it okay to share that with just the Ag Commission, or would it have to be public? I mean, I suppose everything's public record. I don't know about anybody else, but I didn't put anything super secret on that.
Joe, it's all public record.
Yeah.
But if it's one-way communication like this, just questionnaire,
sure,
then it's not creating a public meeting because you're not having a discussion.
I see.
But if we had everybody had a round robin discussion online, then we have a problem. So that's why we want to get the results of the study and then come back and have it in an open public meeting, discuss the priorities. So that'll happen very soon, whether it'll happen the next meeting or December.
Got it.
Very soon.
Okay, perfect. So much for just sharing it back to the entire committee. No. Okay, we will do that. Any other topics? Okay, real quick, I will mention that I happen to know that there will be a water bill going to Olympia this year. More information coming soon. All right, no other agenda items. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Anyone?
Tyler Barron says I motion to adjourn.
Okay.
I'll second. It's Mo.
Okay. All right. Having a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All opposed? If you're going to oppose this, no. All right. Thank you, guys. We are adjourned. Thanks for a wonderful meeting.